Okay, we're going to be able to open it up for questions. I'm going to actually start with one of my own, though, because it's one that I think is an intriguing one. You know, we know that ESG investments, companies that operate along that guidelines, you know, are trying to do it for kind of woke reasons, maybe even greenwashing according to the left of making their image look good. But is there any evidence to suggest these standards necessarily are bad investments, that they actually are not having companies perform to their optimum? You'll hear a lot of times things that are said that ESG actually, I guess the mantra of it is, make money and help the world. Are they succeeding in that, or is this actually hurting their bottom line? Is there any evidence one way or the other on that?
Well, I can start and look at the Nasdaq's request to the SEC that they put in on their board diversity scheme. They confuse causation with correlation throughout the entire request by claiming, yes, of course, if you just put more women on your board, you'll make more money, but they never show their work, right? Of course, if you put more LGBT people on your board, you'll make more money, but they never explain it. You know, it's the A skip over B equals C. And they claim this with pretty much every aspect of what they do. Any environmental shareholder resolution that comes from the left, they do the exact same thing. So you can look at their lack of work to disprove the theories that they're putting forward on all of their ESG, because at the end of the day, they have to claim that this is going to help the company, but they don't have any sound scientific studies to back that up. And I'll let the, Scott and Steve can speak more to it.
Do I have to turn that on?
No, I think you're good.
Generally speaking, the companies that are pursuing ESG are primarily financialized companies. And when I said financialized companies, what I mean is that they are increasing profit margins without increasing productivity, which is to say that they're using a variety of financialized means, using the Federal Reserve's easy money, using cutting costs, using all sorts of different measures to appear to be more profitable and to continue to promote their share prices without actually creating anything sort of productive. So it's a little difficult to say that from that ESG is benefiting them. The other thing to note is that one of the problems with ESG is that it is being manipulated by some of the large players in American financial services. If you look at the overwhelming majority of actively managed ESG portfolios, what you'll find is that the top 5 stocks are Apple and Microsoft and Alphabet and Facebook, and I believe it's Visa. But so you've got the 4 big tech stocks, and they claim that when their returns increase, that's a big deal for ESG. It's not. It's a big deal for tech stocks. So what you have essentially in a lot of these ESG portfolios is a tech portfolio, but a portfolio for which the asset management firm charges 2 and sometimes 3 times as much commission to manage the portfolio. So this is being manipulated. This is in large part a way for some of these asset management firms to promote their own ethical ideas while at the same time raking investors over the coals.
I would say for this crowd, if you want to know whether it's helping or hurting the bottom line, go to State Street, and BlackRock in particular publish some of their research, the ESG, the climate science research that they're relying on to force companies into politically timed zero carbon promises and plans. Just look at that science, that research, and consider its quality, and you'll know completely whether the ESG push is adding or subtracting long-term value from these companies. It couldn't be clearer that it's all nonsense.
All right, thank you. Yes, if you have a question, please come to the microphone, and if you have it, please make a question, and if you can address it to one or more of the panelists.
My name is Ron Stein. Questions for Stephen or Scott, whoever wants to take it. We know Biden wants to get rid of oil. He's killed the Keystone Pipeline, banning fracking, stopping oil exploration. Now, as it turns out, oil is the supply chain to the refineries. The United States has 137 refineries. Without that supply chain, they've got nothing to manufacture. And he's banning import and oil also. So without the supply chain of the refineries, we lose a lot. Not just the fuels for automobiles, trucks, planes, and merchant ships. We lose the 6,000 products that are made from the derivatives that are manufactured from those. And we basically don't have a medical industry. Didn't exist before 1900. Electronics didn't exist before 1900. Communications didn't exist before 1900. Fertilizers and asphalt didn't exist before 1900. So my question is, how does the government explain to the public, because the public wants the economy and the lifestyle to continue?
Well, you saw just, I think yesterday, Jen Psaki, the president's spokesman, said inflation is good. It means people are buying stuff. This is great. That's how the government explains it. I like to use the analogy, back in the 80s and early 90s, there were some public service announcements. The guy took the hot frying pan, he said, this is your brain, cracks the egg, and this is your brain on drugs, and it's fried and the whole bit. Well, this is your economy, and this is your economy on ESG. We're getting a taste right now of what it will be like in the future when everything's zero carbon, when we have to go to zero carbon. This is a preview. It is a very mild preview. The sort of economic damage that's going to be done by zero carbon is just unimaginable, and by happenstance, by a confluence of a variety of circumstances, including government action. So, they're not all accidental circumstances. We are getting a taste of it. This is what it's going to be like. This is what they're promising when they say, well, yes, it'll be a little bit of pain in order to save the world. This is what they mean. This is the type of thing. So no matter how they try to rationalize it or explain it away, this is in fact what they're pursuing on a much larger scale. This is what they want.
Well, yeah, I think that's right. But you also have to remember that the Biden administration isn't anti-carbon energy. It's anti the American creation and benefit from carbon energy. He was all in favor of Nord Stream 2. Funny, it was the last administration that was colluding with the Russians, but it's this fella, right, who is fine for them to have pipelines, but as long as we don't have them. And the explanation of what they think, let's not worry too much about what Uncle Ice Cream thinks about anything, but what the administration thinks, we all know what the left thinks, because we have to sometimes accidentally see Brian Stelter, whatever his name is, on CNN or some other god-awful thing. They don't have any idea what the country thinks. They just think we're all rubes wearing our Klan outfits around dancing around the mountainsides, and whatever they think we're up to. They have no idea what we think, and they don't care much about how things affect us. So, that explains why they're making these decisions that are obviously disastrous to the economy. Look at both China and Europe's energy crises right now. As Steve says, that's what they want to bring to us, and that's not an accident. They want us to live smaller, more constrained lives so that they can fly around the world and not have to deal with the hoi polloi so much at all because we're locked in our houses. And so, it's a combination of just absolute arrogance and having no idea how the rest of us are reading all of this.
All right, Tom?
Gentlemen, I'm Tom DeWeese. I'm president of the American Policy Center out of Virginia. And for the last year and a half or so, what we've been focusing on is really working in the local communities to teach people how to organize and fight back, to protect free enterprise, protect private property, protect individual choice, working right there in their own communities. It's what I call building a freedom pod in your community. As I'm listening to all these things, dealing with businesses on the financial levels and so forth, I wondered if you had any suggestions of how we could lead people on the local level to have an impact on these policies. Would it be organizing boycotts, or is there something else that we could do to get people active and do something about it?
The opposite. It's engage. The left threatens boycotts a lot, but their success is through constant engagement. I like to give the example, like, do you think the manager of the local Starbucks in Dubuque, Iowa is particularly woke? Or do you think he probably goes to his Lutheran church with a lot of his, customers and employees? I think it's probably the latter. But guess what? He doesn't hear from them. And so if a company is driving you crazy, don't boycott them, because your boycott's not going to have any effect, because it's not going to be collective and across the country. So go into that local Starbucks and talk to that manager, because believe me, there's a big bottom-up problem that these huge corporate leaders only hear what they want to hear because they've activated their woke employee base to speak up. But the true cancel culture in America is the Coca-Cola employee, for example, that doesn't want to go to the training that tells him to be less white, right? Because they're afraid that they're going to get canned. So we need to encourage employees at all levels of business to engage. So I would say go to that Starbucks, call investor relations, call customer relations constantly, because these companies truly are only hearing from one side. So, every company has things called customer relations. If you're a customer, their phone line should be ringing off the hook when they take an action that offends our side, but our natural inclination is to run away from them. Do the opposite, run to them.
Well, and particularly in the Commonwealth these days, but run for school board. We've got to fight this all the way back. We've got to achieve the countermarch through the institutions.
You could put the microphone near you.
Sorry. We've got to achieve the countermarch through the institutions. We can't just save corporations for a decade and be fine. We've got to fight it all the way back, and especially in the Commonwealth of Virginia, run for school board. Get in there and stop the nonsense being taught to the kids, and the climate nonsense is right at the heart of it. Stop it being taught the kids when they're little, so that they can have the same nous that we had when we went to college, when the professor of left-wing nonsense starts spouting, they can, shut up, or fight, or argue back. That's what we need.
That's a big part of what we're teaching, is that very thing.
Outstanding.
That's absolutely what you should be doing. Chris Ruffo, if we win this battle, Chris Ruffo will go down in American history as the greatest accidental hero of the movement, because simply by becoming interested in critical race theory and promoting his beliefs on it, and showing what various companies are doing and various school boards are doing with respect to critical race theory, he's awakened the sleeping giant of the American people. And if we can take back school boards, if we can start, as Scott said, that long march back through the institutions, that's huge.
Hi, I'm Gordon Tom. I'm with the CO2 Coalition. I have thousands of dollars invested in a Vanguard fund, and that's thousands with a T. So if I want to move my money out of Vanguard, how do I know I'm not putting it in some other fund that's just as evil?
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I think that's addressed to anyone who wants to answer.
Okay, well, I actually have, a client or is he a retired client, but he ran an asset management firm for a long time, and he has what he considers a considerable but not grossly out of whack amount of money with Vanguard too. And he complained to his advisor. He said, look, I don't like this. I want some way of being involved. And his advisor said, tough luck. This is something that we're doing. This is what the company's doing. I mean, you can go out now and pay your, capital gains on everything, and that's something you can do. But this is the way the business is going, and you just have to deal with it. I think that the big three are going eventually to be in for a very serious awakening when they realize that people will do that people will move their money. There is one institution in particular that comes to mind, and that's Crossmark Global, which I believe is in Dallas. And the reason I say that is because Bob Dahl, if any of you are interested in the markets or participating in the markets forever, but Bob Dahl, who was at BlackRock, before that was the vice chairman of Merrill Lynch, before that was vice chairman of Oppenheimer. is now the vice chairman of Crossmark Global, which is a faith-based asset management company. And they're developing funds, and they have the ability to develop bespoke portfolios for people to align with their political values, and their political values are specifically conservative and Christian. So that's one company that comes to mind. There are others, and they keep springing up all over the place because there's a marketplace for them. But yeah, if you do, they're, as I said, they're very small, and it's not taken quite as seriously yet. But there are opportunities for companies, for asset managers to get some of this business. And if you do a little investigation on the internet, if you look at Crossmark and some of the others, I think you can find at least some place to do that.
What Steve said.
I would add one thing, though. When you pull your money out of Vanguard, tell them why.
Yes.
Don't just do it in silence.
My name is Terry Winters. I'm with the CO2 Coalition. It seems to me that the problem is the people or the institutions that are voting for these shareholder resolutions. So, Steve, I'd like to ask you, how do you change what ISS and Glass Lewis are doing?
That's a difficult question. Actually, Justin may be able to answer, because I know Justin has been working on possible alternatives to ISS and things like that over the years. The problem is that they control so much of the market, and that most of the media and large asset management world wants to promote them as unbiased. As Scott mentioned, that BlackRock is now telling some of its largest institutional investors that they can vote their own proxies. And one of the things that they did along with this is they said, if you're not sure how to vote, we'll put you in touch with ISS so they can help you vote your own proxies. So, you know, it's this circular thing where they're all promoting themselves, and stopping ISS, I think, you're right, is one of the biggest things that we need to do. So, Justin?
I'm often asked if there's a silver bullet, what's the fastest fix to the woke, and it is to buy ISS and fire everyone that works there. That's truly the fastest, but outside of the fastest, we could do a two-track, set up a parallel structure. There's plenty of people that want to vote, so like, if we're not going to put together the $2 billion to buy them, which is the estimate, it's private, to buy them back from Deutsche Bank, then let's set up a parallel institution. And Scott mentioned, we do have the first voter guide for center-right individuals in the country. It's called the Investor Value Voter Guide. It's at nationalcenter.org. We put it out every spring. If you individually want to vote your values, this is the one tool that's out there. It's free. We don't charge for it. We're nonprofit. Take it, use it.
How do we get it? Where do we go to? How do we get it?
Nationalcenter.org. It's right on the main page, the Investor Value Voter Guide. It goes out every spring just in advance of shareholder season.
Well, one other thought. I think that taming the proxy services is going to take legislation. And as a group of conservatives, our instinct is to oppose legislation. But remember, being free people in free markets doesn't mean you count up the number of statutes. And if you can decrease the number of statutes by one, we're freer. No, what we have to have is a legal regime that makes this as free as possible. And in this context, I've got a nice little heuristic for you. Imagine that these giant corporations, Brian Moynihan's Bank of America, and he wants to tell all of us how to live our lives while he lives as a billionaire, right? These companies, imagine if they were privately held companies, right? And there were a single owner or a small consortium of owners, and the managers of the company had gotten together one day at their luncheon club, the equivalent of the Business Roundtable, and declared, listen, you know, boss, we're not going to work for you anymore. We're gonna pretend to work for all of our stakeholders, but you can't really do that because stakeholders don't agree about anything. So we're going to substitute our personal policy preferences and politics for what you want us to do for this company. How fast would it take for that owner or congery of owners to boot absolutely everybody and pick a new staff that's not crazy? Well, we should work on changing the law to get the system back to where managers of companies, and that's corporate executives, as pompous as they are just managers for the shareholders, The legal system has to be reformed so that they're genuinely working for the shareholders again, and if they're not, they can be called on the table, called on the carpet, brought to court, sued in their personal capacities, and made to pay up. That's the change we need, and the equivalent of that at proxy services would move a long step toward that goal.
All right, I think we're getting the hook now that we're going to have to close up. I do want to end on a positive note that there are a number of conservative groups that are, including our CFAC and others, that are joining the fray. The good work that the National Center for Public Policy Research Institute, our center, has done, NCPPR, has been outstanding in this field. Steve Malloy with Junk Science as well. They need help. I think, Tom, maybe your group and others, if they could join the fray, we can start participating more in these shareholder meetings, putting forward more resolutions so it's not so one-sided at the meetings. And for those of you who are interested in that, you may want to talk to Justin and even myself or others about being involved in that. We need all the help we can get. And so I thank you for being here, and you should thank our guests, and enjoy the rest of the conference.